Um, Calling the meeting to order. Andy Camage is feeling a little unwell, so I'm going to chair the meeting today. We will start with public comments. I don't think we have any public comments. Our one member here is not here for public comments, so we'll move right into agenda review. I know we're going to move Tom right up to the top. Carrie, did you want to do public comments? Okay, all right. We're going to move Tom right up to the top of the agenda, so he'll be the very next thing after this. Are there any other changes to the order of the agenda, or is there anything else anyone would like to add? Okay, great. I did have an additional item, which I guess I would put is 8C. I just wanted to talk with the board about whether we felt like doing some sort of resolution to talk with the town about making sure that the town was doing everything that it can do, whatever that is, to maximize the Pembroke residents getting all real estate tax abatements that are available to them. So we can talk about that when that comes up. Anything else? All right. So either take it away, Tom, or Patty, do you want to sort of introduce us here?
I think everyone knows Tom Serafin is our school district moderator. Tom comes every year before the meeting to go over the warrant articles and to clarify anything that he would like. He likes to know who's going to speak to the warrant articles, whether there are any additional presentations to be done, and by special request to bring back the Hill School students to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and that's been arranged. So we'll go back to that tradition that people always enjoy that. So that is set. And I did, however you want to proceed, Tom, with the articles, but I did talk to Andy and he is going to introduce each of them. And he will have a presentation on the overall budget. And I think that's the only presentation. It's up to you. Yeah, because the recording won't pick it up unless you can take it. Yeah, it has to be really close.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just make sure it's flicked on. You can give it a couple like.
I see the light now.
Yep.
So first and foremost, I'd like to talk with the board about elections. So elections are an official meeting. On the town side, we actually open up the town meeting during elections. We recess after elections, and we complete that at the town meeting on the following Saturday. Since the school district meeting goes first, that would be the opening of the meeting, and your meeting wouldn't officially be closed until the end of elections. Legally, and what has never been the practice as far as I can go back, but legally, we should have school board members present during the elections. These are your elections, and you do have responsibilities. So I am in part here to request your attendance and participation during elections. And I'll throw that introduction out there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or entertain any dialogue along those lines.
So if my understanding is if we cannot be present, we can nominate someone pro tem to take our place?
Correct.
And must ourselves or that person be there for the duration from 7 to 7 or 11 to 7?
In theory, you should have a quorum there for the entire duration.
Okay.
Now, this has not been the historical practice of the select board either, but for about the past 4 or 5 years, they've actually, assumed that as their responsibility. And part of what's driving this is, as I'm sure you're all aware, a significantly increased level of scrutiny during elections. Our last election, we actually had a lawyer from the Secretary of State's office observe the election from beginning to end. end meaning the counting of all ballots, the sealing of all all processed ballots, etc. So significant increased scrutiny because of, frankly, what we've all read in the news. Should there ever be an issue, and there hasn't been, but there's a lot of stuff that's never happened before. Should there ever be an issue, it's technically your elections, and you would have no one there to address it. So, while technically, Jane, you're correct, I wouldn't consider that anywhere near best practice. Best practice would be to have a quorum there. It's your meeting. It's an official meeting. Just like you wouldn't nominate pro tem people to be here in your stead, during any other school meeting. So, and I was talking to our town clerk today, and frankly, historically, we've really allowed the town clerk, quick aside, couldn't be more appreciative of everything the school does relative to making the space available, working with Josh, having all needs met. So that's fantastic. So certainly no issues there. But we've really allowed our town clerk to really take charge of elections and basically run them. And that's something that, he's done it. He probably should never have done it to the degree that he has. And we're certainly looking to address that.
Yeah. Tom, can you just speak? I called up the on the website to get my mind straight on the dates. So we have school district deliberative session, business meeting, Saturday, March 11th, beginning at 10. Pembroke town election and school district election, Tuesday, March 14th, starting at 11. Pembroke deliberative session, business meeting, Saturday, March 18th.
Right.
So can you line up everything you just said with what our attendance obligations are with those 3 dates, please?
So again, your attendance obligations, assuming, again, I'm here requesting, I certainly have no ability to do anything other than to request your participation through the counting of ballots. But your obligation would certainly be to be present during the school district meeting, and then be there from 11 till the end of counting of ballots, and preferably assisting counting of ballots, with the only exception being if you're on the ballot. You can't, but that doesn't mean you couldn't help count town ballots, because quite frankly, what we do at the select board is we ask select board members who are on the ballot to count school ballots.
So one other thought I had on this was, Amy, you were running, correct? So if she is present, okay. So if she is present in the building without, unless it's bad weather and you allow it, would that be considered maybe electioneering?
Not unless she's actively electioneering.
Okay, I just,
So,
you can't sit inside and hold your sign,
right.
So, okay.
And people might think it's me anyway, so.
That's true.
Whatever you guys decide, but I do have every Tuesday off, and I'm usually there most of the day anyhow. Just need a break to run home and check on the kids, but I can be there most of the time.
I mean, everyone is afforded breaks during the day. Town elections, quite frankly, are pretty easy, versus the primary and the general elections, which are a 18-hour day plus. Town elections will have ballots counted by 8 o'clock at the latest, I'm sure.
So I can do most of it. Not alone though.
And to be honest with you, I was in your chair for a lot of years, and I never once was even remotely aware that this was on the books. It just never came up. But again, there's an awful lot that's coming up relative to election law and election integrity that's never come up for years. So,
I can also be present. I am running, so I'd be happy to do like select board counting and, select board related ballot work. And I've volunteered in elections. Also, there's other stuff too, like, being the gopher for coffee and supper and all that. And I can help with all that. If it's possible, I would like to, do like a later part of the day shift and, split the day with like Jean or Andy or someone who I might be able to work that out with. So I'm not there for an entire day, but I can be there for an entire day if I'm the one that needs to make the quorum.
Again, I'm here to make the request. Y'all can,
Mhm.
hopefully we'll see you during elections if we do great. And again, if you don't show up and something comes up, that could be an issue. If nothing comes up, like it hasn't for the longest time, it may not be an issue. But now that we're all aware that that's actually what the RSA state, in my opinion, once informed, I do believe we all have a responsibility to do, either show up or have someone serve in your. All right, so that's really all I have to say about that. In terms of your warrant, so just to be clear, Patty, you said Andy's going to speak to each and every warrant article.
Yes, he will introduce each one, and he's going to do an overall budget
Yeah.
presentation.
Well, he won't introduce them. It will
No,
be
you,
made
you'll read them, but
and
yes,
put on.
yes, yes,
okay.
he'll.
All right. So, and it looks like there's 100% approval. Certainly, no questions whatsoever. My biggest concern would probably be is it the last warrant?
For SB2.
Yeah, warrant 10.
Mm.
Warrant Article 10.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one. I was in several hours of training on Saturday for the New Hampshire Municipal Association. And Jean, you were talking about electioneering. You obviously need to be able to speak to your warrants. At the same time, depending on how you speak to it, could be construed as electioneering. So I guess my only thoughts there is, and what we discussed is, I would probably seek counsel or get advice, because there is some sentiment that even printing something to hand out is using school district resources to attempt to influence the result of a vote.
When we do the summaries, we always run them by Dean for that purpose, because over the years I've been really surprised that something that looks really innocent and it can be considered electioneering, and that you're, instructing someone to do something a certain way. So we're trying to be very careful. That's just informational. We did talk to Dean about the right of the board members to step away as board members and go to the microphone and speak as a citizen. So I'm not sure if anyone's going to take advantage of that, but that may happen during that discussion.
And I will share that in essentially a lifetime of attending these meetings, historical practice of the moderator has been to moderate, not take an opinion. The one exception our longstanding moderator made, and his 30 some odd years of tenure was on this particular issue. I have no desire or intent to speak to it one way or another, regardless of past precedent.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly expect other people to speak, and I anticipate there'll be a conversation there. It's certainly, when you look at, is it not on one of our other districts' warrants to move away from SB2?
Yes, it's on Deerfield. Mm-hmm.
So, there's certainly plenty that people can can talk about. So, do you all have any concerns about anything on the warrant? Is there anything that you're anticipating? And is there, anything that people think that will drive attendance, that we're going to have issues relative to capacity or anything?
Usually we have more people on a collective bargaining year, so potentially, but I don't see any mass crowds that wouldn't. The auditorium, I think, holds 500 people. So, right, Dan? I think we'll be fine.
All right.
Stacy, you're going to say something? No.
I would like to see captioning, which I think we can do very easily just by running the PowerPoint. And even when the PowerPoint is just on a blank slide, it will automatically do the captioning of voice. So all you have to do is have it on, and you can set it that the captions will go at the top or the bottom of the screen. And I'm happy to set that up, but I would like to just have approval for us to do that.
I am certainly more than supportive of that. I would only request that we get there
Yes.
more than an hour early, and we have plenty of time to practice.
Yep.
So just like we make sure there's batteries for the microphones,
Yep.
and backup batteries, but plenty of time to practice. If we can pull that off, so it's not causing more of an issue than it's helping
Yep.
to address, I could not be more supportive of that.
I think
So-
it's a really easy setup to do. It's one button in PowerPoint. Like you
Okay.
do.
Right. That's
He reviewed everything and said everything was okay.
that's
So, Tom, just so you're aware, I mean, in addition to the SB2 being an intellectually stimulating debate in and of itself, our particular warrant has kind of the wrong date. You know, it refers to the date of the town meeting. It doesn't refer to the date of the school meeting. And so people might just have there might be some hubbub associated with that. And, you know, I mean, I don't think I'm violating attorney-client privilege. It's our privilege to share the information if we wish, and I wish to. You know, legal counsel reviewed that and said it was all, you know, approvable and good to go on the warrant as petitioned. So just so you have that information.
so. I wouldn't have asked. Now you just confused me.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'd rather have you have that moment right here and now rather than,
Okay.
you know, in front of hundreds of people.
So you're saying, what's the wrong date? Shall we adopt the provisions of
He has my
RSA
copy.
40:13, known as SP2, to allow official ballot voting on all issues before the school district of Pembroke on the second Tuesday of March?
Second Tuesday of March being the question.
Right. When we're going to be asking this question on a Saturday.
No, oh, okay. I see what you're
Yeah.
confused by. It would change the way you're doing it so that they would be voting on your budget on the second Tuesday in March. That's what that word.
Yeah, that's how-
what they're
I guess
asking
that's
to
how-
go to.
That was my confusion. I mean, SB2 has
what
to be
SB2
decided
is.
at this meeting, whether or not we go to, but then it would be the subsequent
Oh, okay.
election is
Yeah.
how I
Yep, never mind.
interpreted it.
If you adopt those provisions from now on, your budget would be voted on the second Tuesday in March.
So that was how I read it. It was
Correct.
no, yeah, and I hope people are reaching out for there to be stimulating conversation on warrant Article 10. The last thing we want, in my humble opinion, is for there not to be stimulating conversation on warrant Article 10. and I'll just leave that at that. So, all right, any other questions?
I don't think
for
so.
me?
The only other thing was for the CBA, I'm going to be saying a brief, very brief little thing about the teacher contract, and then Andy has a presentation on that, just so you're aware.
So the only thing that historically comes up with CBA is two things. One, there's always people that believe we can negotiate on the floor. Always. It's inevitable that someone's going to say something. Obviously, we're all aware that it's just an up and down vote. You know, you can welcome to express your opinion, and I'd be happy to entertain any opinion. But I can't imagine that won't come up again this year. The other question that people always get confused by in CBA years is it is possible to approve the CBA and not approve the bottom line. So again, I'm sure you all know that. And people get very confused over believing that if they approve the CBA, they have to approve the bottom line. So you're really not, the dollars on the CBA are really directional at best.
Separate, yeah.
You know, and I know people who have voted on CBAs, attended these meetings for years, and still get confused every 3 years when this comes out. So, although if I can ask now, just out of personal curiosity, 4 years is a little unprecedented in the district. I'm sure it will come up, and you all will speak to it. But what was driving that this time?
Amy and Melanie were the negotiators, so I would let one of them speak to that.
We were trying to sort of take like I guess maybe like a capital improvement planning approach to it all, and just sort of looking down the pike at what was going to be coming in subsequent meetings with the paraprofessional contract coming up, the Hill School vote coming up, and on the town side, some possible substantial road improvements and sewer improvements, and just trying to get this out as far as possible into the future.
That's fair. And you all are aware of Tri-Town. So, yeah, we will have to monitor the amount of it 500 may be more than enough seats. Depending on the sentiment between now and then, 500 may not be enough seats. There's an awful lot hitting all at the same time, and people are going to be very confused and have lots of questions. And historically, the school is 70 cents on the dollar. I mean, mark my words, people will go after the town harder than the school, just because that's also historically been the case forever. And hopefully the Tri-Town situation is the last shoe to drop, but we can't be sure of that either. So it's I anticipate things to be if there were every year for people to want to get out outside of like a major building project or a new sports team, this may be the year. So, but we shall see. We won't know.
Hill to make a plan for an overflow crowd, you know, like having a audio visual connection to the, you know, auditorium or something. I mean, I guess let me start with this. Is there a plan for 600 people?
You scheduled it for the auditorium this year.
Sorry.
We don't have the capabilities to put audio visual in 2 different places. So if there's overflow, we would not have a setup for that.
So the answer is there's no plan for 600 people.
Correct.
Okay.
If you think there are going to be 600 people, now is the time to make the change. can't imagine that even in the height of everything that was going on, we never had that many people.
Would
No,
the gym
we-
be available if
Yeah.
a switch needed to be made?
It would be very challenging to make that switch in the moment. I mean, there are things you can do in anticipation of that, but it will not be a smooth transition, and it will require the patience of a lot of people for that to get set up. I mean, for instance, we only have one suitable podium, one suitable set of flags to get set up. There are things that would have to get moved in order for that to happen. So, to Patty's point, I think if there's any question of whether or not there'd be enough capacity, I would consider changing it because it would be very challenging to do that in the moment.
The acoustics in the gym are horrible, and if you remember the number of people that had hearing issues with that made me I felt badly that there were people that couldn't hear. So
I can say that in terms of logistics of the actual meeting, I will never be okay again with someone walking around with a microphone. No, people can line up. That it was just too hard to keep track of people who wanted to speak.
agreed. Yep.
So, all right. That's
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much, Patty. You're welcome to have this back, and
Okay.
good luck to you all.
Hey, Claire. Yeah, it's a new feature, so sorry for the interruptions. Every once in a while it says this meeting is being recorded out loud. Yeah, we did, yeah. Sorry for the intrusion. Oh, thank you. I'll bring.
Have a great evening.
I'll make a motion to approve. Aye.
Aye.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Let's go to our board report, starting with Mr. Demers. Go for it. Student Senate report.
So for Student Senate, just a quick update. So one thing that we did recently is we had our committees addressing certain things that we had to tackle. One thing that we had to stop is our Mr. P or our new version of Mr. PA. We just had a committee for that, and it was basically a new take on a former like male beauty pageant, but it was more like inclusive. But we didn't have enough people sign up, so basically the people who were assigned in that group were split into the various other groups. We're in the next coming weeks we have Winter Carnival, so we're just kind of planning out stuff for that. There's been a lot of ideas for new events, so we've been testing out those. So today in the gym, for example, we tried out a new event to make sure they're safe and they would be fun for everyone. So yeah, we kind of have just been in the same little groups that we have been in before, whether it be like our schedule, like for Winter Carnival, or planning certain events and stuff like that. So we've been up to that, and then we'll see where we go after in February. So. Yeah.
Anyone have any questions or comments for Jake? Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for the report. You are welcome to stay for the whole meeting. It's going to be amazing, but
Okay.
you are also welcome to take off.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. We have a facilities report from Mr. Coughlin that was distributed to the board as number 5 in our folder. It looks like, Patty, you have it in your hands. Do you want to walk us through it? That would be great.
So Mr. Coughlin says the facilities crew is excited to announce Mark Thibodeau as a recent new hire. We're excited to have Mark on our staff and as a member of our team. The crew worked very diligently last week to take precautions for last weekend's wild weather. We did lose a rooftop heating unit at Three Rivers on Friday night. With the assistance of our Honeywell techs, we were able to get the unit back online with no significant issues. All in all, our facilities fared well with the Antarctic weather. Our crew is busy supporting winter athletics and extracurriculars as they head toward the home stretch of their seasons. A quick shout out to the outside crew who had a long week with snow cleanup a couple of weeks back. They continue to come in with a positive attitude while systematically going through the snow removal process to keep our facilities safe for all. Thank you, Josh.
Just to thank you for that, Patty. And I noted that that was in there as, the file name was number 5. I think that's a new convention, or after years, I just noticed it, but it's really helpful. So yeah. All right, let's start. Youngest students first. Wendy, you want to start with the administrator's report?
All right, good to go. Okay, so our upcoming events at Hill School, not in order right now, but on the 16th, we have the architects coming in to meet to present at our faculty meeting. So all the information that they shared here and the work they've done with the visioning team will be the first time they're going to be in front of the whole staff. So that'll be exciting. And then they'll be with us the week after February or winter break for a full day, and staff will be able to sign up to spend time, and they'll have a survey that they'll put out to them prior at our faculty meeting to be due before that date, so that they can then ask follow-up questions. So that'll be exciting for everybody to really get a chance to talk into the building. Today in our building, because we have a variety show coming up on the 23rd in the PA auditorium, which I'm very excited about, cannot wait. Our UA team took some time, about half a day, to just cycle through all the kids coming in and getting everything set up and making sure they had everything they needed and the props and the music and stuff. So I can't wait. That's going to be very interesting. And then the proceeds from that are going to go to support the band program and to get instruments in our kiddos' hands. So that the team, they came together because they wanted to help Miss LaRose support that program, and they came up with all of this, and off they go with it. So Pals is doing a sweetheart dance for our 2th through 4th graders. That's coming up on the 11th. So there's a little bit of buzz in the building with that. And then another thing is we have our 3rd data meeting coming up. So we're collecting, right now is kind of like our benchmark 3 is our mid-year benchmark.
really digging into where our students are at, and finding out what, looking at their growth, areas that we can help close any gaps that we see or anything like that. So that's a big thing coming up. That'll be on the 23rd as well. We'll sit down as a data team and take a look at all of that. We had I know I've mentioned our assemblies that are coming back. At the last one, we had our art club. Miss Murphy does an art club with our students weekly, and they worked on a project to provide art to hang around the building, as well as like in our conference room to kind of spruce it up a little bit. So we were very excited, and they were so cute because they did a whole video on what PHS means to them and what the art represents. And so that was a great thing to share with everybody. We did a something called a scan drill a couple of weeks ago. It's one of the drills that we do, just safety planning. So we hid something in each classroom, and then we announced that it was a scan drill, and they had to collectively figure out what it was that was in the room that didn't belong there and bring it to the office. It was a little cutout of a heart. So that was interesting and actually turned into a scavenger hunt that they all enjoyed. So win-win. And the last thing for us right now is, especially in 3-4, we're doing a lot of SAS practice. Really just working on getting them access to the type of programs that they're going to use and access to the computers and things like that. When we spend time practicing, it brings a lot of anxieties and worries down for the kiddos, and it just gives them kind of that extra boost to feel more confident in showing what you know. So we've done a lot of work around understanding that SAS is something that shows us what we know, and it's connecting it to what we're already doing in the classroom. So I think those are kind of the big things going on with us right now.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Wendy about the Hill School? All right, graduating to middle school. John, you want to take it away?
Well, we also have dances. I'm not sure I'd call it a sweetheart dance, however, because that may have a little different connotation with us. Our 5th and 6th grade concert we had last week. I think we postponed that one. The weather's been crazy. The place was full. It was great to see. The concert was a little bit under an hour. I think there were 80 band members alone on the stage at one time, and we're actually kind of concerned that the PA stage isn't big enough. So we'll see what happens next year. But in any case, we had a lot of students there. I forget how many in chorus for 5th and 6th grade. Place was packed, and I thought it went really well. This is I think sometimes we forget. This is the first winter concert we've had in however many years, and so it was good to see. It was nice to see. Our 7th and 8th grade concert is tomorrow. Not quite as large, but close. So stay tuned. We'll see what that looks like. Our girls just played tonight in the semifinals and won. We just found out. We have kind of a special link to the team. And so they will play Thursday night for the championship. Our boys play tomorrow night in the semi also, and they will, if they win that, they will play Thursday night. So we got a busy week. Our drama club is Moana Junior is just started practicing, and it's kind of fun to after school you can hear a whole mess of things coming out. But we have some pretty talented kids. Actually, some of our 5th graders may be stealing the show. So that's what I'm told anyway. So we'll see. I do want to shout out to Josh. I know we all do that, but I think sometimes we forget, Josh Coughlin. I think sometimes we forget that, when the heat goes Friday night, it's not at like 6 o'clock at night. We're talking late at night. He comes in Saturday, make sure everything's going. He's they're on the roof Friday night, with whatever the wind was, whatever, 40 below, and he's up there trying to figure out how to make this work, and that might be a little above and beyond. And I spoke to him Saturday or Sunday, whatever it was. He had heaters set up in the bathrooms, in our locker rooms, because that's where the heat was out, and he made sure it didn't freeze over. So he spends an incredible amount of time. Honeywell did fix it today, hopefully. You know, I think it's important to recognize that it's not just during his work days that we see him. He gets, that phone goes off and he comes from wherever he is, and it's, it's pretty awesome he does that. We also have started our Super Bowl baskets, which we always have, we traditionally have had a raffle, and we, geez, I don't know how many we got lined up now in the office. They take over the office for a couple of days, so we'll have that drawing. That is a 6th grade fundraiser for their trip. And I hesitate to say this, but the building really feels kind of normal. It's like kind of nice to feel. And I'm like, I don't dare to say anything, but students are great, and and everybody's really cranking some stuff out. So it feels good to get back to, when I walk through the building, it just feels like some normalcy, and it's really, really nice to have that. It's been a while, so it's been good.
Thank you. Questions or comments about Three Rivers? Anyone? Okay. Last but not least, Dan.
Good evening, everyone. So a new development with NHIAA, they are introducing esports. And so we are starting a club, and there will be some tournaments. The 2 games that NHIAA is rolling out are Rocket League and Super Smash Brothers. Rocket League is, I can't believe I'm saying this, that it's a 3-on-3 soccer game with monster trucks. And then Super Smash Brothers is kind of a knock 'em out kind of thing with cartoons. Anyway, it'll be on, yeah. So it will be on Nintendo Switches, and we've worked, Mr. Vizina and the Mr. Rich, the advisor for this, have worked with our tech department to make sure that they can get that to work. And I'll tell you what, there are a lot of kids excited about it. So I think they may be onto something. We were fortunate enough to welcome Richard Haynes to speak to our sophomores and juniors last Friday. He is an admissions director at the University of New Hampshire and the director of multicultural achievement there. And he spoke to those groups about the power of education in his life. He grew up in a less fortunate situation down south and encountered a lot of racism and financial hardship, and was fortunate enough to come up to New York and then to the Seacoast. And he is a very accomplished artist. He has a lot of pieces that are in the Currier Art Museum, and has his own showings, and was able to really impart his life story with the students, and then was willing to stay after and meet with, I would say, probably 20, 25 students who had very specific admissions questions for him, and he was very giving of his time and encouraging to them. So that was a worthwhile experience for a number of our students. As Jake had mentioned, Winter Carnival is fast approaching. I like to think of athletics as an opportunity for our athletes to compete and do what they love. And certainly drama is an opportunity for students to do what they love there. And Student Senate is an opportunity for our young leaders to do what they love. And Winter Carnival is the biggest example of that. It is a daunting task. The 2 advisors for that, Lindsay Fontaine and Lindsay Mullen, do an excellent job of kind of striking a balance between allowing the students to take ownership of the process, but also imparting their wisdom after years of experience and understanding that some of those things are not going to fly. I have every confidence it will go off as smoothly as it has the past few years. So I'm really looking forward to that. Good news regarding the Eddies. We were contacted by the selection committee last week and have been selected to move on to the next round. So there is a group of Amy and myself and a teacher and a parent and 4 students are going to present on February 20th to the Eddie Selection Committee, and hopefully we can convince them to come by again this year to see what we're all about. So looking forward to that. In terms of NEASC, we were able to finalize our NEASC report, our self-reflection report, and I would say that one of the biggest hurdles prior to NEASC visiting team coming here is that, you know, that report goes out to all of our staff, they pore over it, we have a meeting where we discuss if there are things that need to be edited, and then that's voted on, and you need a two-thirds majority for that to then go up, you know, uploaded to the NEASC website. And we decided to vote on it by each standard. There are 5 standards. 3 standards passed unanimously. 1 standard passed with every vote yes other than 1. And another standard passed with a 93%. So, you know, you're never going to get everything, you know, and it's supposed to be a product that represents the entire staff. And I think we found that. So there was a lot of hard work that went into that. I spoke about that at our last meeting, but I'm just tremendously proud of that group and what they did. Additionally, sorry to continue rambling here, but a lot of good news. Teacher of the Year nominations, we had 8 this year. Yeah. So Eric Deedle, and I'll give you these names, Sandy. So Eric Deedle, Jeannie Johnson, Earnhardt Dale, this is his first year teaching, and he's a Pembroke Academy alumnus. He's nominated for Teacher of the Year. Corrine Moore, Kristen Doyle, Scott Thibodeau, Lindsay Fontaine, and Riley Sheehan were all nominated. So I don't know how many of them are going to choose to move on to the next round. I know at least 2 are because they've asked me for letters of recommendation for that. But nonetheless, just being nominated is a huge feather in their cap and something that I think we're extremely proud of too. We had an event this morning called Hot Chocolate Palooza, and that came out of our Pembroke Academy leadership team, where we wanted to provide an opportunity for staff to highlight a student who's done great things in their class or in some other, you know, maybe they're a coach and they coach that student. So it wasn't necessarily strictly academic achievement, but, you know, that they're doing great things. And I think what really made it impactful was that staff wrote notes, cards to each student. So a student got an invitation. Amy did a great job facilitating all of this, and it was really well organized. Students got a pass. They came to the cafeteria. They got their hot chocolate, and then at the end of the line, they got their card. And seeing these kind of, you know, teenagers who, frankly, can sometimes be hard to impress, they were really impacted by the messages in those cards, and it's something that they, I'm sure, brought home and showed their parents and will be able to keep too. So that was really great, and I think we're going to continue doing that in the future. So I'd like to congratulate our unified basketball team for another successful season. It's always a highlight, and we have a lot of great support with our student body with unified basketball. I'm looking forward to the unified volleyball season coming up in the spring. We have our youth risk behavior survey that we will administer this Thursday. We rescheduled that because there was a slight chance we were going to have a 2-hour delay based on weather, and we didn't really want to risk it. So we're going to have that this Thursday. And not PA related, but I did want to touch on the TRS principal search. I'm chairing that, and I can just let you know that we have a great group at TRS that is putting in a lot of time to find someone that won't fill John's shoes, but will do their best. And it's just, I just wanted to highlight that they're doing a lot of good work. So that's it.
I'll jump in with just a quick question. What's the latest with the vaping situation?
Yeah, it's still an issue. I think it will be an issue, quite frankly, until laws catch up with it a little bit more. You know, when we catch students, you know, they're not supposed to be in possession of these things until they're 21. And I did have a frank conversation with a student recently who said that she became addicted to vaping through COVID, and that it was. And I've seen this. I think this is a real trend, and it's something we're going to be combating for a while. Is that there was just more of an opportunity to do that. When they were remote and all of that, and we're going to be challenged with that for a while. So I think it has improved from earlier this winter, but it's certainly not in a place where I'm satisfied with it. And I don't know that we're going to get there, but we're going to continue to do the things that we're trying to do. And we do suspend students for possession of that. We do, when we have enough reasonable suspicion, we conduct searches of backpacks and all of that. So we're doing the best we can, but it's as you know, these things typically happen in bathrooms, and it's very challenging to, police that in a space that's private and doesn't have direct supervision.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments for Pembroke Academy? Going once? Okay. All right, let's move down the reports. SAU board, exec board.
So the SAU exec board met last night. We conducted interviews for the superintendent search for Allenstown, Chichester, and Epsom. Went very well, was very productive. We also discussed the auditing situation, and I'd like to hand it over right now to Patty to, give us a little more in-depth detail on that.
I read this word for word. I did go through the entire report with the executive board last evening, but wanted to make sure that I also mentioned it to individual boards. It was brought to our attention. We had a request from the Pembroke MBC that someone wanted to look at the audits. So we went back and I realized that we were much further behind than I was aware of. Pembroke's 2019 audit wasn't finished yet. Everyone else's 2019 was done, but that's a significant lag for something that's supposed to be completed every single year. When Amber contacted the auditing firm, they expressed concern with continuing to work with us. This is the last year of their 3-year contract, and they felt like we were so far behind they didn't see a way to get us caught up, and that they were probably not going to be able to continue to work with us. So I immediately set up a meeting. I found this. They emailed me on Friday. Monday morning, I met with 2 members of the auditing firm and convinced them that I was disappointed that I would step into this. I would work with the business office and do everything within my power to get as much done as we could as quickly as possible. So I did receive a name of a retired business administrator from the auditor, and that was like gold in my hand, because I couldn't imagine how I was going to find help for us to get this caught up. So I was in contact with him. Last night, the executive board approved bringing in him as a consultant, and he also works with someone who actually used to work for our auditing firm. So between the 2 of them, they're feeling really good about coming in and helping us get caught up. Allenstown's 2020 audit is complete. Everyone else is still needs to finish their 2020 audit, and 21 and 22. So there was a couple of questions about funding for this. We have a position that wasn't filled at the SAU office this year, so there's an open slot for salary. My intention is to contract with the consultants from that line so that we won't have to pass on any cost to the districts. There was a question about the submitting payments to the auditing firm, because there was a line in the budget that shows that they were paid. I talked to Amber about that, and she actually accrued the funds, because if something's scheduled to happen, you can accrue the funds into the following year. So she had accrued some funds so that we would have a little bit extra this year, knowing that they were going to be doing some extra work to get caught up. Anything above and beyond, if they go past their contract, which is for 1 school year, that we would cover that also from the SAU budget, so that we wouldn't have to pass any further costs onto the district budgets, and run the risk of overrunning any of those lines. So that's the quick overview, and I'll take questions if anyone has any.
I'd just like to, you had mentioned, 2020 and everything, but the 2019, which is highlighted on the paper that Patty gave you, all that paperwork, documents, any information that the auditing firm needs is together and they are in possession of it.
And I would also, I think, I just want to reassure everyone, and I don't know how much people are aware of what goes on in a business office, but all of the paperwork for the Department of Revenue, the Department of Education, all of our financials are all up to date. So nothing in our financials and our books. We have fantastic treasurers in our districts that reconcile. They get our bank statements every month. They see every invoice. You see every invoice that we pay. So I think some people are alarmed thinking there could be an issue with our financials. And I don't want people to leave with that impression, because we are in really good shape with all of that. But auditors need to come in and pull samples of things and make sure we're following best practices, and that if there's policies that we should have and we don't, we bring those before the board. Like 31 pages of things that they request, but our financials are in good shape.
I was just going to ask, for confirmation of my assumption as to, why and how do you think this happened? And my assumption is that, either the cause or a big part of the cause was because everyone was dealing with the pandemic.
Unfortunately, that is a huge piece of this. We've been behind in our audits since Amber took over. She had to dismiss the auditor that didn't get our audits into us on time, had another firm come in, and they were soon realizing they weren't going to be able to work with us and get it all caught up. And so we're on our third firm they've been fantastic, and they've been desperately trying to get the information, but it's finding staff and finding time to make that happen. You'll remember last year, Amber had to fulfill both the business administrator and assistant administrator role. So we've just been really short-staffed at the SAU office, and that has absolutely impacted, but I don't want to make excuses, because they're due every year and we have to get them done every year. So
Understood. My other question is, you mentioned, and I'm trying to read along here as you're talking. So Peter Curro, if I'm saying it right, is the business administrator, who is the retired business administrator you mentioned, who's
Yes.
coming back. And then there's a consultant CPA.
Mhm.
So are these two folks are they qualified and licensed appropriately to perform the audits?
No, they're not performing the audits.
Okay.
They are working with our office to get all of the documents together to give to the auditors, all of the things that need to get pulled, the policies, and if they pull samples and need reports, AP records,
Okay.
volumes of things that need to be put into Dropbox. At the same time, I've asked the business administrator to be prepared to look at our practices, and if there are best practices, things that we can do better at the business office, that we are absolutely open to that.
And so can you just clarify, did the auditing firm that was in that third year of the contract, are they in a position now where they are, maybe staying on board? Definitely staying on?
I've had regular contact. I've updated them. I've asked to be copied on every email that goes out about the audit. I'm sort of regretting that. But I promised them that I would stay very involved, and they felt like we took the recommendation to look for a consultant to help us, because they said essentially you're going to triple someone's workload to try to go back 3 years and pull everything. They were pleased that we moved forward with that. They were pleased at the number of documents we pulled to finish getting them what they needed for 2019. And I think they're going to kind of wait and see. The new consultant that comes on is going to talk to them and try to come up with a plan. And I think at that point they'll be able to, it looks good, but I think until they know that we've got a plan and these people are going to help us, I think they'll make that decision.
I mean, I did coincidentally, I think that, I just want to say in your and in the school district's defense, if they decide not to continue with us, I don't think it is all our doing. I hear in the national headlines that something like over 3,000 auditors and CPAs have resigned in the past, over the course of 2022. So the accounting industry as a whole is having to be very selective about the work that it decides to engage in.
It's a lot, and I'm feeling better because Amber and I know how much the budget secretaries in the schools hated this, but she transitioned to all online, and every time there's an invoice, it's scanned in and attached to the PO. So there's going to be a lot of documents that are going to be available to them in the accounting system, which is going to save a ton of work. So I think there's a lot that going forward will be easier. It's a new firm to us, so now we sort of know the things that they look for, that everybody has a little bit of a different approach. So I am hopeful, but I will remain steadfast and steady in watching for the emails and keeping up to date on everything.
You're saying that they're in the third year of a contract
Yes.
with us. Why didn't they notice?
Oh, they do. They knew. You know,
Okay.
they knew, and I think there's a lot of little pieces that could have made this whole process better, and one of them would be me having contact with the auditing firm, which I've never done. It's kind of a business office function. So, and I said to them, you know, I'm owning part of this that I didn't notice. I wasn't getting those books that are incredibly difficult to read through and through. So that piece of it I should have noticed. I should have known, but I also wish that I had heard from them sooner than we're not, you know, dear superintendent, we're breaking up with you. I wish I had heard before that point, because now I'm, you know, trying to fix that part of it. But
And just for a little further information concerning this, we don't have a time frame yet as to when these will be finished. The wheels are in motion. So after you speak with the consultants that are coming in and everything starts getting together, I think we'll have a little better picture down the road of when we can expect them to be caught up. So.
See, I told Jake Demers that this was going to be so amazing. He really shouldn't have left. Any other questions or comments? Anybody for anything else Jean reported on? Good to know both, you know, in conjunction with nice to have the update on the two very important job searches we have underway. So that's good to hear. Melanie, Hill School renovations.
Yeah, not too much. Since the last time that they came here and did the presentation was the last thing. And our next meeting, we are now meeting monthly. The next one is February 21st at 4 o'clock at Hill School. So now we're on a monthly schedule, which is like our second school board meeting.
Terrific. Thank you. I have a report from Andy for NBC, which I will just read here. The update is that after the public hearing, the NBC affirmed its prior votes, meaning that the budget number in Article 2 of the warrant articles is recommended 9-0 with 1 abstention. And the rest of the articles are unanimously recommended 10-0. And just as a reminder, Andy is reminding us that a united front between the NBC and the school board is the best case scenario that we could hope for, what we're always striving for. So that's great news. The tax increase is going to be large. This is my editorialization. We knew this. This is ultimately a culmination of many years of approving moderate increases, only to have the actual increase be much smaller for various reasons. And this will be laid out at the meeting. There is an additional meeting for those of us that want to attend this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. at Town Hall. So that is an additional meeting this Thursday, 6:30 p.m. at Town Hall. I think he means NBC, right? Yeah, an additional NBC meeting.
Part of it will be the audit, just to give them an update on the audit. But I don't believe you need to be there for any reason. Yeah, no. Yeah.
Jean might be able to field questions. I won't be able to, but I would be happy to collect them and give them to Andy and get back to folks if anybody has any questions. Okay, let's move on to consent agenda. Patty?
order that you'd like. We have 2 field trip requests and a bus stop request. So if it's okay, I'll start with the field trips. Yeah. We have the senior class trip. Coach Janelle put in a request for that, and Dan is here if you have any questions about that trip.
I'll move to approve the senior trip.
I'll second. Oh, sorry.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the senior trip? Except that we're all excited that there's a senior trip.
Exactly.
Okay, all in favor on approving the senior trip, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Jean, did I hear you say aye?
Aye, sorry.
That's all 4 of us saying aye. I'll make a motion to approve the, what's the name of the single student trip?
All state.
All
All
states
state.
from Mr. Thibodeau.
Senior moment. I'll make a motion to approve the all state.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on the all state? All right. Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Did you want to speak to the bus stop, Patty?
I think it was a bus stop before the pandemic, and they're asking to institute it back. I think there was just an issue with the family. Had done something. I can't remember if I didn't read the whole thing. But Linda talked to me on the phone, and it had been prior to the pandemic. It had been a bus stop, and the parents need it back
Because they're suffering through nursing school, is what it says.
Oh, you saw that.
I did that. I did read that.
I guess I was concerned because I noticed down the bottom that Linda recommended, or at least I was reading quickly, but I think I saw that she recommended that it not be approved as a new bus stop.
No.
Did I? Oh,
She is recommending. The
She's
stop,
recommending.
Yes. So who is recommending the stop is so when Linda came up with this form, it was because sometimes she was not recommending a stop, but a parent made the request. So the board asked to have a form. So if she wasn't recommending it, she could fill that in and tell you why she wasn't, and then you could make an informed decision. So yeah, it looks a little confusing.
I'll make a motion to approve the bus stop request.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the bus stop request. Any other discussion on it? All right, let's vote. All in favor of approving the bus stop, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. Is that the 1, 2, 3, or is there more? All right. Still 0 gifts and donations. Okay. Immediate business program of studies. Amy, do you want to take it away?
Sure. Now, does everyone have a copy of it in their thing? Okay. So as usual, like we made up the notable changes, so you don't have to like go through the 68 pages of handbook that are exactly the same except for this section. In general, not a huge amount of changes, but some exciting changes just from a technical scheduling perspective. One, the summer reading. The summer reading was really successful last year. We went through with 64 books, and our participation went from 176 to about 402. So it was a huge of the students that passed. So it was really great. Good to see. We'd like to try it again for this year. So we changed the language because last year's program of studies was approved before we did the change. So this just mirrors what our current program is. And then the English and Arts and Tech departments both have added a number of proposals for classes. Not necessarily every class will run, but we'd like to offer them and see what the students are interested beyond what we've gleaned from them in order to create the classes. So just starting at the beginning, there are a couple changes in names. ICT is going to be Google Suite Basics to highlight the fact that that's what it's really focusing on. Marketing 2 is now going to be called Entrepreneurship to encourage some creativity there. Changes in grade levels, we're just modifying a couple bits and pieces. Creative writing used to be just for 12th grade. We'd like to introduce it to 11th grade. And pre-engineering, it was 9th grade as well, but we like to move it to 10th to 12th grade to make sure there are currently 3 electives 3 courses that the freshmen can take and choose from, or they can take one of like the energy courses. So there's a lot there, and we need a few more slots for some older kids. New and returning courses, a new introduction to the arts class. So it's a new intro general art class to get you some prerequisites and some introductions across the board. A new modern band course. So just more modern music for our students who've already done band and want to try to push themselves a bit more. An intro to technology course. So that incorporates some of the Google Suite basic stuff, but also web design and all of that into it, some app development. Intro to business kind of takes over some of the accounting stuff. So it's a new course. We're going to try out next year. English. So the English department has 3 new electives, Women in Literature, Shakespeare Studies, and Survey of British Literature. Each would be a 2.5 one semester course. And then I'm very excited about one of our returning items. We're going to switch over the category it was in over to extended learning opportunities, and it's the return of peer-to-peer relationships. One of our more popular classes, we took on a unified health and unified gym class, and now we're going to have unified health, unified gym, and peer-to-peer. They're over the top popular, like they're great. So life studies is just going to be changing a couple of things around in the names. So in the past we've had advanced topics. They're going to split it up a little bit to help with some of the scheduling issues we have. And there'll be a sports and nutrition focus. There's one with a fitness and nutrition focus. And then one called Steps to Healthy Cooking. And that's like a foods and nutrition kind of class. And that takes over from what used to be Foods 2. And then math is interested in adding an elective this year, a 2.5 elective, which we rarely see, on probability and statistics. We've seen an uptick in kids who are interested in furthering their math in an elective way. And we've seen it with VLAX and some of our eStart classes. So some of our teachers would like to try that. And then social studies is going to pilot a personal finance class. So our economics course already runs very similar to a personal finance class and meets the needs of a personal finance class. We just want to put in one more class just for fun. So we're going to try it out for the year. Removed classes. Last year we introduced a classic and modern literature, and we discovered that we really like the idea of going back to the contemporary literature year-long class. So that's what they've decided to do with that department. The numbers were pretty small, so we think we can pull in more kids with contemporary lit. The following courses we're going to put on hold science literacy. That was a no-go. So we're going to put it in our back pocket and see who wants to take it in future time. And art history, 10 years, I think, since we've run that course. So I think it's time to usher it out. I do have students who take that in VLAX and in the AP version. So, but we'll just move it on. Foods 2 is just getting replaced. Advanced topics in wellness, it's getting replaced. And piano studio, in order to make more room for some music courses and having things like world music, we're going to move that, and the teacher has agreed to take our piano studio students and work directed study in the piano lab and some of the other music classes. Other than that, it's just a lot more options and choices for the kids to go and take some of the classes that they need to take.
I think this all sounds really exciting. I'm one of those people that like pored over the course book trying to decide which courses to sign up for. So I'll get in trouble for like saying I want to sign up for a lot of these courses. But any questions or comments for the updates to the course of studies? Now I can never remember. Do we need to approve these? Yeah. Okay. So anyone want to make a motion to approve? Who wants to make a motion? Stacy does.
I make a motion to approve the program of study for the 23-24 school year.
I'll second it.
Last call for discussion. All right, let's vote. All in favor of the program of studies, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you guys so much. It's obvious how much work goes behind this. All right, so calendar. On the calendar, we have a couple items. The 2023-24 calendar itself. And then we have the poll, the little pie chart poll. I just wanted to make sure folks saw that. And then the Concord calendar.
Yes.
So do you want to walk us through it, Patty, please?
We had a little bit more discussion this year than we have in a while. Typically, the calendar is pretty stagnant and the same PD days and the same vacation, and we kind of try to mirror Concord as much as possible. But this year was a little bit different. We did, in the teacher contract, negotiate 4 days to the start of school. So when we started looking at the calendar and put those 4 days in, initially, we had proposed 2 days the week before, and then Monday and Tuesday, thinking teachers could have a couple days and then a couple more, and then students would come, until some of the staff brought to our attention, well, if we do that, we only have students for 2 days and then they have 4 days off. And, why would we do that? And then we like to do some back to school activities too. So it really seemed disjointed, which made sense. We were concerned and wondering how the full staff would feel about starting after Labor Day. We haven't done that in a really long time. And it means that school would get out on June 18th. So the EAP offered to do a survey of the staff, and we took them up on that because we were kind of going back ourselves as an admin team back and forth. So you saw the results, and I just wanted you to see that that poll had been done and what the feelings of the staff were. So, we'll wait and see what happens on June 18th, and if they regret this, if we start after Labor Day. But people are concerned, and the earlier you come back, there's no air conditioning in the schools too, so it can be really hot in August. So that was one of the considerations that staff ran by us to think about that. Other than that, I don't think there was anything else, was there? That was, the day at Hill School. In March, part of the negotiations was the Hill School now gets 2 teacher parent conference days. So and to remind you, Hill School, the elementary requirement for hours is 9:45, and middle and high is 9:90. So they have enough hours that they can do those parent conferences and not have to add any time on. So we added that day in March. I think everything else is pretty much the same.
I have a question. So I understand, or I've come to understand, that one of the reasons why Pembroke strives to follow the Concord calendar closely is because of the exchange of students between the program. How does that work with the beginning of school here? I'm looking at their first day for students is August 30th. And so under our proposal, our first day of students is the 5th.
Right. So we never actually have the same exact calendar as Concord. And there are times when Concord cancels and we don't, and there are times when we do and Concord doesn't. And unfortunately, it does fall on the students to get themselves there because we won't run a bus if we don't have school. So the students have that option. I know parking's not the greatest in Concord, but that is, I don't think they're penalized though from Concord, correct? If we don't have school.
No, they're not. And if I can add,
Yeah,
CRTC typically starts 2, 3, 4, depending on the year, 2, 3, 4 days after we start.
That's right.
And so the Concord calendar is there and they start school, but it takes some uploading for CRTC to start. So I actually think that I'm anticipating that this will be smoother for us because we always run into an issue at the beginning of the year. What do we do with 100, 110 students that don't have any place to be for 90 minutes? So I think this will actually be better.
I have a quick question on November 7th of this year. There is no school for state general elections.
Yes.
So is this going to be something that's, since there isn't one this year, being 2023, is this something that's going to be on the schedule just as a day off because we do have the elections at the high school?
I think there is an election though, isn't there this year for something?
I don't believe so.
I thought we checked on that, but that's a good question.
The midterms are, statewide 2-year
right
in Concord, 2 years for Congress, and then the presidential
right,
general election.
Off, right.
So the odd years are off.
So maybe we didn't have the right calendar when we were looking at when the elections were.
I was just, if that was going to be like a placeholder day, so you don't have to manipulate. I didn't know if that was part of the reason.
I
but
didn't.
apparently
Yeah,
not.
I didn't know. I didn't even catch that. I don't think anyone did. Yeah. Is that something that if there is no election, we will hold school on that day? Principals? Okay. So if you don't mind approving that, and that if we find out there's an election, we'll put that day off back in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just doing the Google, and yeah, the Secretary of State, nh.gov, elections information 2022-23 political calendar says that there is a general election on November 8th, 2022.
But this is next year.
I'm sorry. Yep.
Yeah. And Jim usually sends everything to Josh too about when they need the facilities for the elections, so we'll double check with him too to make sure we have it right. So if everything else looks okay and we can approve it pending the verification on that day, that would be great. And we'll just get that detail before we finalize it and send it out.
Yeah, I think that Jean is right. The question mark is yeah. On the proposed calendar for the next academic year. I just wanted to look at, and I hadn't had a chance to yet, where the vacations fell with respect to the town meeting, because I know that's been a problem with the calendars in the past.
Right, March 2nd is the, yep.
Well, February vacation ends on March 1st.
Yep. So I don't think, I think the 2nd, if you count the days back, it would be too soon. I think they would be the 9th and the 16th. So I think ours would be the 9th.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah, that was nice having that change this year.
So I'm looking. Oh, wait a minute. That's March of 24. Never mind.
So do you want us to, how do you want us to act on this tonight, given what we've discussed?
If you would approve it pending verification of the November 7th election day, that would be wonderful, with the understanding that if there is no election, we'll have school that day. That'd be great. So I know we're waiting for kindergarten registrations and some other things to get, we want to get the calendar out. Yeah, so that'd be great.
I've already been wanting.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm just, can you repeat that? Because I'm just confused.
Yes.
This is the 23 to the 24.
Yep. So if there is no election on November 7th next year, we will have school.
But this isn't for next year.
Of
This is
November 7th.
23.
Of November 7th of this calendar year,
2023.
of which is the next school year.
There is an election on the 7th of 2023. So why are we talking about?
So we think this is a mistake.
I don't know. So you want us to still vote, and
yes,
you guys are going to
we need to
double-check
verify
that.
this
Yeah.
information clearly.
Because my calendar and my Google says general election. Like, yeah. Right. Okay.
It would. Yes, it would move it up
Yeah.
a day if we have school.
Yeah.
It would change. Yeah, it
Yeah.
would move it
So-
up one day.
Yep.
So, well, would it move it up or would it move it back? So if there is school on the 7th, we would
get
end
out
on the 17th.
Correct.
Yeah. So I'll just make that motion then. I'm going to
Okay.
move to approve the calendar with the understanding that if there is an election on November 7th, 2023, then there will be no school. and the last day of school on the calendar will be Tuesday, June 18th, as proposed on the calendar.
Mhm.
And if there is not an election on Tuesday, November 7th, the last day will move to Monday, June 17th.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Does anyone want to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Discussion on the motion, please.
As a former teacher, ending the school year on a Monday seems like a waste. Is there, although the long week before doesn't sound great either.
No.
Yeah. I don't know. Is that something you want to play with, or should I just forget I even thought it?
Yeah. It's not going well.
I
Mm-hmm.
the feedback we received was that it would be really helpful for students to start after Labor Day.
Yep.
And in keeping with that, I don't know that we have another option. There are certain PD days we need to have contractually, and then there are certain dates that we need because they align with like the March election day, that sort of a thing. So we don't have a ton of flexibility. I'm willing to bear that.
Okay.
Those concerns if they come up.
Yeah.
All right. That sounds
You'll have,
perfect.
you'll have,
That's a good
Okay.
plan.
You'll have
We're going to do
buildings
that
full
for
of-
a year at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, well, you don't care.
Exactly. You just all year will. Oh, that was John. That was John did
I do
that.
have a quick question for the principals. Obviously, I can see the graph that most of the staff thought it was a good idea. Do we feel like there'll be pushback from like the parents? Like, because obviously we didn't survey the parents and stuff. Not for myself, because if you ask my kids to write whatever they want, write a paper, they'll figure out how to cite their citations of why school should start after Labor Day. But I'm just curious with childcare and parents. Do we think that there's going to be a problem?
We have never surveyed anyone about the school
Okay.
calendar.
All
We
right.
just did it with teachers because we thought, oh, this is, it was really about, do you want to come back that week before for a couple of
Okay.
days, or would you rather? That's really why
I know
we
a
asked
lot
them.
more school systems are doing more
Yeah.
after Labor Day. I just wanted to make sure because
Yeah.
we have generally always started
it would-
before
right,
for a long time.
We do want to get this out because
Yeah.
it is different for us.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, I looked at it and said, well, Labor Day is early.
It is.
That's-
So I agree. I think we should like move forward so that parents that need to know that have that as soon as possible.
I think we just have, on that Monday, there's going to be, buildings full of staff and teachers and no kids.
Yeah, sounds like an iced hot chocolate day.
We can watch as we go along and see how many days and how many hours we have. There's
Right.
nothing that says we can't make an adjustment if we get down to that point and we haven't had a lot of snow days. But I'm not saying that, and I'm not making any promises to anybody at this point. We'll plan for the Monday and we'll see what happens.
All right. Any other discussion? All right. The motion is, as I painstakingly made it, basically, either we'll do what the calendar says, or if that day in November is not an election day, we'll end on the Monday. Let's vote. All in favor of that motion? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So the agenda item that I added is, being cognizant that I don't have one, and I'm just assuming nobody has one. The money tree that grows out back that, just produces endless amounts of money. And here we are acknowledging that we are proposing a budget that is large. And so I just want to make sure that we're being creative and thinking outside the box and doing everything that is possible to put taxpayers in the best possible financial position, while also still proposing the budget that we believe provides the education that needs to be provided to the students in the district. And so that led me to wonder, you know, does the town know how many taxpayers are eligible for the various tax abatements that are available? So there's like a veterans tax abatement, an elderly tax abatement, a charitable tax abatement, and I'm probably missing a couple. So, you know, is there even information that is known and knowable about how many taxpayers are eligible? Of the amount of taxpayers that are eligible, do we know how many people are actually taking advantage of those tax abatements? I don't know how much the town is dialed into all of that. I know that the town of Pembroke's codes are pretty up to date with all of the state statutory language, which is wonderful. But I wonder if there's anything more proactive in terms of outreach that the town can be doing to be in touch with those taxpayers who, by right, could be benefiting from these abatements. So I thought it might be helpful if we just discussed this a little bit, and if we were in an agreement, if one of us might want to have a conversation on behalf of this board with whoever would be the proper person at the town to further that interest, to make sure that the town is doing that outreach and helping the taxpayers in Pembroke maximize these benefits.
I can address that a little bit just from NBC. I know on the town's warrant, there are several warrant articles addressing, veterans and elderly and, so on and so forth, to be updated basically this year to be more inclusive. As far as the person to contact, that would be Dave Jodwin. As far as outreach, that's one of those things I think you have to do your own legwork. And, in certain circumstances, especially with veterans, there are resources that are open to them, but they have to initiate. I don't think the town has the ability, other than putting something in the newsletter or on the website, to do a reach out to the community and say, they're not going to go door to door. They're not going to go door to door and send a letter to say, hey, these are available. You may qualify. I mean, and I think this subject is probably better brought up at a select board meeting than here, because we don't have any standing to further that.
That's exactly my point, though, is that we wouldn't do it, but as a board, we could resolve to encourage the select board to be proactive in educating the citizenry of Pembroke about this. I mean, I think that with, as Patty was alluding to, seems like Amber went through a little bit of a painful process to digitize the data keeping associated with the books of the district, which is fantastic in the modern way. And I know that the town has done a lot of that too. And with the digitization of data, I think it is possible to, with not that much effort, identify how many taxpayers are veterans, identify how many taxpayers are elderly, and do targeted outreach. So I don't think that this board necessarily needs to do the outreach, but I think that we definitely should encourage the select board to be taking on that sort of role. Because I do think that that it's their purview for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely their purview, but that data in many instances probably can be private if somebody doesn't want to know that they're a veteran or that they're low income, so the town wouldn't necessarily know who's who in those situations. And I think, as far as outreach goes, and I also believe that the school board going to the town and saying we're suggesting this might send the wrong message in certain aspects, just because, you know, we are the biggest part of the tax bill by far. And, you know, it's very easy to turn that around and say, hey, well then reduce your budget by the select board. Sometimes there is a little bit, you know, we had a very good experience with the budget committee this year. And I think us making a statement that the town should do more is not necessarily constructive. I think it's a good idea, and yeah, obviously that information should be readily available to the residents. They can go on the website and say, oh, geez, I might be, you know, I might qualify for this abatement or this tax credit, whatever the case may be. But beyond that, you know, I that's like maybe a third rail kind of topic for us to move forward and, you know, go in as citizens of the town. We can go in there at a select board meeting and make these suggestions, and they may take that to heart. They're going to know who we are in there. But I think as a board, that's almost like we're not making a political statement, but it's approaching a political statement. So I would want to avoid that as much as possible. You know, again, our budget being 3/4 of the tax bill, and we're going, hey, you got to do more, might not be the best message. So that's just my thought.
Okay. Thanks, Jean. Anyone else?
I agree with Jean in that it comes across or could come across incorrectly in us as a board to say that. I totally agree with you, and every year I sit and say, but there's got to be something to help these people.
Yeah.
But I don't think as a board, it's our place to be doing that. And maybe as individual citizens going to select.
So you're not concerned about, you know, if one of us were to show up at a select board meeting and talk about this and having the opposite reaction, you know, of, well, you're not authorized by the board to make this request of the select board, are you? No, I'm not. I'm here just in my own personal capacity.
Yeah, that's,
you know,
and that's the same situation you'd be in if you wanted to get up on Saturday at school district meeting and comment on something. You can shed your school board cloak and walk out to the mic and state your case at that point as an individual citizen. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a good suggestion to maybe get it out there, run, you know, maybe get it on the school sign out front every so often. You know, are you eligible for veterans tax credits or whatever? Boom, done. You know, that kind of thing. Contact the town hall. You know, but going to the select board and making that suggestion is also a good idea. But as a board, as a body, I don't think so. I don't. You know, I think that might send the wrong message. Might, maybe be well received, but I'm not willing to take that chance. So.
Melanie, anything?
Like, and I agree with both of you. Like, I think it's important and you want to try to educate. And I don't think everybody's accessing those, but I think it's wrong. It could send the wrong message if the board does it. That's what I agree with. But I think it's totally okay to go there as an individual and make a suggestion.
All right. Well, thank you for having that discussion. You know, from my perspective, I think maybe we'll just do a agree to disagree on that one. I think it's a shame that we can't make a resolution to this effect as a board, but, you know, maybe something to think about for the future.
And the positive from this conversation is some of those select board members do watch these videos and they know we've had this discussion and maybe they'll think about it too. So, because it is a, you know, we should be able to do as much as we can.
Yeah.
But most all of us have to find our own way, no matter what it is, no matter what we're doing.
Right.
So
And I also want the taxpayers that we hear from that are in those categories to know that, we hear them, but that doesn't mean that we can abandon our obligation to provide an adequate education. Okay, I think that finishes number 8. So let's go on to policy review. I think I want to hand this over to Patty and Melanie and Jean, but I think we're ready on at least one of them.
I thought you had some language that you wanted to suggest on BEDH. That's why we left that on.
And I did not do it.
So we should hold that one.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. And the DIA is one that I was just explaining to you about how the auditors once in a while, one of their questions was, hey, do you have a policy on what you do with your fund balance? No, we don't, but we will. So that's on the agenda for that purpose. And that's a school board sample. And then EHBR is the record retention schedule, and that's on for a first reading. And so there's no action needed on either of those unless you have some suggestions in the meantime for Jean and Melanie.
Jean or Melanie, do you have any instinct on the, is it the DIA? Our soft inclination is to go with school board recommended policy language.
I'll be honest, I didn't do my homework on this one.
It's very short.
So
Yeah.
let me see if I can go back and find it here.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
What I was planning to do was to show our auditors, this is the sample policy that the School Board Association gives us. Is there anything that you think we should add? And take direction from the experts, if that works.
That works, and I'd rather review it like after.
Mhm.
Generally,
Oh yeah.
the school
sense.
board stuff works, and we just tweak it a little bit.
Mhm.
But this is obviously
It's
the
brand
first
new.
reading. It's
Yeah.
brand new,
Yeah.
so
I'm also typically interested in, maybe I'm missing it, Patty, but I'm also interested in the date that the School Board Association drafted the policy,
It's usually at the very bottom.
I
think
don't
it's an
see
optional. I
it.
don't know that it's a common policy and it's just an optional policy.
Yeah, it
and
just has
it's-
the legal references.
Yeah, it's only that
Right
our
below
auditor
them.
asked.
Right below them, September 20.
revised September 2012.
All
It's
right.
an oldie but goodie.
So in that case, I'm, the older it is, the less likely I am to, feel inclined to just take it with less review. So yeah, we'll put this on the next agenda or the agenda following when you have received that input.
Okay.
That work with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. And then did you have a plan of attack for the third one, Patty?
No, it's pretty prescribed, and by statute, we don't have a lot of say on when the what the record retention schedule is. If they tell us to keep records a certain number of years, that's what we do.
And there's a lot of RSAs.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of notes though, but it does say revised September 2018.
Yeah. Yeah, we can move it to a next reading.
Yeah.
I think that sounds fine. I think it looks good though.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that we need to take up during policy?
Nope.
Okay. Is there anything else before we go into the next and last public comments? Okay. Public comment? Okay. Informational items? Want everybody go at once? Okay. Do we need to go into non-public session? Okay. And there's nothing else that we need to do before we do that, right? All right. And for what purpose? Okay. I'll make a motion to go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91A3 Roman 2 lowercase c, which is the matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the board. On a roll call vote, Stacy? I'm a yes. Melanie?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Okay. Good night, everybody.